Alright all, so today I'll be going over the first Game Boy that I kind of went over in my intro video for the Grand Prix series, the GameBoy Grand Prix series is so I named it. So let's get started straight into it. So we're going to see what was wrong with it. So originally, what did I write down here from all that time ago? So new screen lens, it needs a clean, and it's missing a battery compartment. So I've just put the batteries in here just to double check that it actually worked before the video, just to make sure that nothing had changed while it was in storage. And to me it looks absolutely fine. There is some marks on the screen there. I'm just trying to see how bad that is. Oh, that is a bit bad. So based on what I kind of wrote there and what I've seen right now, the plan of action with this one actually is, even though I put on that I was going to stick a new screen lens on it, I've actually just over here gotten some parts for it from Retro 6. I normally stick to Retro 6 for a lot of my Game Boys just because, to be honest with you, I really like the quality. They do really good stuff. But yes, so what I'm going to try and do with this one is nothing fancy in terms of a screen. I'm hoping that a bit of a reskin and a bit of cleaning, because that's what I do with all the Game Boys, is I'll be opening this up, giving it a clean, seeing if I can fix anything with the screen that I can. Maybe it might need a bit of soldering, but hopefully not, just to kind of get the contacts a bit better. So we're going to give it a clean. We're going to see if we can fix the screen, whack a brand new shell, and it's nice to have some buttons and a brand new screen lens on it. And then at the end of the video, what I'll do is I'll kind of work out how much it cost, and then put it at the end, but I won't kind of have a value for what I sold it for until the very last video of the series. Okay, so first let's just double check that we work. We do. Righty doke, let's get these batteries out. I'm just going to use this to get them out so we can operate on the Game Boy itself. So yeah, so like I said with this one, you go over there. So like I said with this one, so the battery compartment's actually pretty clean, so there won't be any kind of damage or any kind of foist on the inside motherboard. We're going to take it all apart, and what I'll normally do as well, I should have a screwdriver over here, yep. What I'll normally do as well with these kind of machines is, for when the shells aren't this bad, like, because it is mucky and it doesn't have a lot of scrapes, but it has some. What I'll tend to do is put these aside for another date, and use them in any other future projects where I might just need, say, a shell, and I can get the lens off other machines if needs be. So let's get this off. So you do that on a DMG by getting rid of these 6 screws here. So there's one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there. Now from having a quick look at this, I can see that there's no screws in this, and there's no screw in that one either. But there are screws. I don't know if you can see them too well. The screws in this one, there's a screw in this one, and there's obviously the 2 on the battery compartment. So let's get these open and see what the inside of this Game Boy looks like. So based on the outside so far, it actually looks pretty clean. So I'm hoping not to open this up and find anything badly damaged or any kind of, there may be some dirt, but I mean, in machines this old, there's always dirt in machines this old, especially when they're handhelds as well. It's the same handhelds, controllers, it's all kind of the same thing, where just dirt from people's hands, or because they've been carried around or left in bags or in attics over all these years. You never really get to know the history of a Game Boy, but it would be something that's nice to know. Yeah, so let's take this off. So what you tend to find with DMGs is they'll always have the kind of ribbon cable in. I'll take this off just before I show you anything. There we go. So yeah, you just kind of pull this little ribbon cable off, which just connects kind of the board which the screen sits on with the actual motherboard itself. DMG is really the only one I've come across that's like this. So a lot of your Game Boy Pockets and your Game Boy Colors will have a singular board, which the screen fits on and everything, but the DMG is a bit like this. So let's have a look. Let's take off anything that we don't need. Is that going to stay in? Yep, that's fine. So it's actually worth pointing out, actually, I'll go backpedal a bit. The screws that tend to come in, and one way you can normally tell if a Game Boy's been reskinned or something in the past as well. So just to try and get the camera to focus on that, you can see here that this is a tri-screw, so you need like a special tri-ring. It's not like a game bit. You can get these quite easily off eBay and Amazon. Normally you find the official shells do come with these tri-rings, so if it's not been changed, it will have this kind of tri-screw. Some of the actual kind of third-party reshells you get do come with the tri. Just I don't know if it's for the authenticness or anything. So we've got 2 screws here to kind of get this back off, and you've got quite a few on the screen side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the back kind of motherboard first, and the screws for this one are, I'm just going to have to get a different screw head, because what they actually are is they're just a very tiny little Phillips head, so nice and easy. So let's pull this off here. And what I'll tend to do the same with the screws as what I do with the shells as well, is there's no need to throw away decent screws. I'll probably more than likely give them a clean and use them or keep them for a different project. So let's put them over there. Let's give us a bit more space. Right, now let's see if we can pull it off here as well for the earphone jack. Oh, come on. Wow, you're tight. Come on. There we go. Come on, you know you want them. Right, there we go. That's that one. One here as well. Come on. There we go. And that should just pop out. It'll stay connected to the board, but it should just pop out. Now, I'm trying to remember. You should be able to just pull this out. And it just gets caught on the battery connector, if I remember rightly, because you can just take some of them out away from them being attached to the motherboard. Come on. Sometimes it just takes a bit of jigging, a bit of forcefulness. There we go, getting it at the right angle. So there we go. I'm going to also put this to a side as well. So like I said, that's pretty much that shell. That's that back bit done. And what I'll do is I'll actually keep that for a project on a later date if I need it, because it is in quite a nice condition. Now, looking at this, it doesn't actually look too bad. I might just give it a little bit of a scrub down with some alcohol, but it actually looks really good. It's not in bad condition whatsoever. So that's cool. So that's the back off there. So now the bit more trickier part, trickier in the sense that you just got to have to mess with the screen, and there's a few more screws, is just take the front board off here, which has the screen on it and the speaker as well. So this is normally what I found as well, is like putting an IPS screen on a DMG can be, well, it's really rewarding, it's really fun. I'll more than happily stick an IPS screen on, well, anything, if it's got like one of these older style screens. But a lot of people don't tend to want DMGs. I mean, I think I mentioned this in the intro video, is that why buy a big massive DMG original Game Boy when it can only play the original games, when you could get, I don't know, even something like a Game Boy Pocket or a Game Boy Color, or even Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP that can just play everything and more that you'd want it to, and having a much smaller form factor. But the IPSs for these can actually be quite expensive, because from my experience in the past, the ones I found actually come with the full board and the screen already attached / soldered onto it. So you're basically paying for the full board as well, which, don't get me wrong, they look fantastic. I've currently got one in stock at the moment, but they can be quite pricey. Yeah, this takes a bit of time because of how many screws there are, and then this should just lift off. Once you've got all the screws out, there's just 3 little clips in these ones. So there's one there, and one there, and they can be a bit of a pain sometimes to get out. So your best way, or at least the best way I can kind of do it, is kind of pull them back and kind of try to force it up. It can be, like I said, a bit of a pain, but you can even do them kind of one by one sometimes if you're lucky. So there's that one. That one. Let's get you out next, without trying to cause any damage at all to the rest of the board. Come on. Right, you're out. There we go. And then just pull up and it should just come off. You might have a bit of resistance, which is just the adhesiveness of the actual screen itself. I'll be keeping all the rubbers and the buttons from the original console just because, again, I can use them for other projects. But for this project itself, what I'll be doing is I'll actually be cleaning these rubbers back up, ready to go straight back into the new shell we've got. So now you've pretty much got the two boards ready and good to go. Now, I'm going to give these a bit of a clean. I might do a bit of a time lapse with them because you don't want to be sat here listening to me moaning and whining while I go through cleaning stuff. Once you've got all your pieces kind of cleaned up and in a good state of repair, so for example these were actually okay to use again in the future, having a bit of a closer look at the screen on this, even though it's not had a screen lens on for God knows how long, is actually in a nice condition. So I'm actually hoping after a bit of a clean that this screen will just hopefully start working again. A lot of hopefuls there, but I am hopeful. So once you've got everything clean, it's time to start prepping your new stuff. Now, don't make the mistake I normally make, which is many times I'll reconstruct a Game Boy. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, I swear other people must do this as well. When you reconstruct a Game Boy, don't forget to stick your batteries in. Not your batteries, your buttons. It happens to me all the time. So now let's take a look at this. So we've got the screws with this. Again, one of the good reasons to go with Retro 6. So what have we got in here? So these do all look like just standard little mini Phillips, and we've even got a little protector there for the link port, I think, isn't it? So yeah, let's have a look. So obviously what we're going to do is kind of reverse what we did. We've even got battery connectors in there, fresh ones. Fantastic. Right, so we're going to start with the front first. And probably the last thing we'll do on this is the screen lens. Now, just to kind of explain, I try to have like a theme with all my Game Boys. So if someone wants a particular Game Boy or wants to see a style of a particular Game Boy, I'll tend to do that if I can. The rest of the time I just like to go with a theme. It's one of them kind of personal motivation things. So I've gone for kind of a black and white with this one. So that's why I've got like the solid black buttons and the pure white and like a black screen lens. But let's start assembling this back together. So let's get these buttons open. There we go. Right, and because it's an original DMG, it doesn't matter about A or B because it's all the same. There we go. There and there. That's obviously our power switch, which goes in a little bit later. There's our D-pad. Right, now let's start sticking the rubbers back in. You go in there. You go there. Yeah, like I said, luckily the rubbers on this and the screen itself actually are in really good condition. You go there. So they're all seated quite nicely. Now let's start putting in the screen board. You go there. Yeah, and what I'm actually going to do is, let's click that in place first. Let's get them little clips on. 1, 2, 3. That feels nice and secure to me. Now I'm actually just going to use the screws that came with the case. Like I say, you normally find the threads are a bit better on them, and it's all Phillips heads. Now I've gotten all them screws in, I'm going to move on over to the back shell and fit all this back into place. Now I'm going to start screwing this down, starting with the headphone jack. There we go, that's all in, and now this is all in. So what we can do now is, let me just double check that the batteries are all looking good. They look fine to me. So what we're going to do is stick the screen ribbon cable back in, which is a little fiddly, but it's easy enough to do once you know how, and you have to provide a bit of force to get that in. Come on. Go on, there we go. That seems to be seated in there quite nicely. Now, before I actually screw in the back, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start testing the screen and hoping that the Game Boy actually holds together enough, which it should, to just to see if the screen is any better. Why are you struggling? There we go. Boom, 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 boom. 4 chunky batteries. Let's see if she still turns on. Oh, she does. It's because the power screw. No, it's not the power screw. The power button was still on. Right, okay, so the contrast is way up. Now, we still, by the looks of it, have some vertical lines. So what I actually had to do here, because of the damage the Game Boy screen actually had from its vertical lines, was move to my little tiny soldering station downstairs, and you can see me taking off the little rubber band here just at the bottom of the original GBA screen. Now the plan from here was basically to use a semi-hot soldering iron. You can use it around 300 to 400 degrees. I know it's kind of a big jump, but I like to kind of play with it depending on how bad the actual screen is. But what you can see me doing here is I'm starting to, with a heated soldering iron, kind of move the soldering iron slightly across the ribbon cable here that connects the screen to, like, say, the rest of the board. Now, the kind of plan here is you want to heat the contacts, as far as I'm aware, underneath the ribbon cable to kind of make them reconnect and, well, basically reconnect again. So what you can see me doing is, if you look very carefully on the actual screen itself, as I'm pressing and putting contact on top of that ribbon cable, is you can see that because the screen is on full contrast, that a lot of what you'd consider them pixels or them lines are kind of coming back to life. So what you'd expect is you really want the screen to be fully black, basically, with the contrast turned up, and that's when you know that all of the lines are working correctly. Now again, you can just see me move over here. It can be a bit tricky. What you need is a lot of patience with this kind of fix. So what can happen, and definitely happened in this video, as you might see, is that basically some lines can undo the other lines. So as you're trying to fix lines, say in between ones that are working on the far left to the middle, it might actually stop other lines working. But keep at it, keep calm, just slowly move a clean soldering iron from left to right, very slowly, to try and heat that underneath, and you should start to get your lines back. Now, obviously be very careful not to touch the screen and not to melt any of the kind of components around it. It's actually quite a safe thing to do, as long as you're just really, really careful. And you can see like a bit of a close-up shot here of now that I've gotten all of the lines on the left fixed. I'm now moving on to the side of the right, and you can see that I'm holding my iron quite flat to try and get as most of the contacts as I kind of can. You may notice as well that the screen flickers a little bit. This was just me because basically I hadn't put the ribbon cable that goes from the board itself into the main motherboard, so the screen's just losing connection every now and then. That's no worry. Just be careful, like I say, you don't touch the screen itself, and that you definitely don't have it too hot. I mean, these ribbon cables can take a bit of a beating, especially when it comes to heat. And you can see that it's basically finished with a little bit of patience. It took me about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes in total, give or take. Some screens can take a lot faster, some can take a bit more. But you can see as I start to basically test the screen by turning the contrast up and down, that the game I had playing on in the background to make sure that the Game Boy was still turned on and working is fully working, and it's got none of the lines, and I'm freely able to move the contrast up and down to check that it's working. It's a pretty easy fix. Now we're going to move back to my testing area where I've already put in all the screws on the back to save time, just so we can start testing and putting together the Game Boy now it's fully working. And now we should have a working Game Boy screen and all, and that looks good to me. Yep, there we go. Now, final bits now is basically making sure the screen's nice and clean and then sticking that brand new glass lens on it. Now, much like the internals of pretty much any Game Boy, I'm going to use a bit of isopropyl alcohol here and just give it the tiniest little wipe down. Get rid of any of them bits of dust or fingerprints from when I've been manhandling it basically while I've been soldering, and any other marks there may be. That looks good to me. I'm then going to use a little screen wipe just to get off any of the residue. I mean, most of it should just disappear anyway with it being alcohol, but there we go, get it looking a bit nicer. I'm then going to blow away any residual dust from it, because there's nothing worse than having a bit of dust stuck behind a Game Boy screen lens. There we go, let's take a look at this in a sec. It's looking good to me. Gonna give it one last blast, get rid of any dust. Now let's get the screen lens on. Should be a nice fit. I'm pretty sure that's about right. Yeah. So let's get this open and get it on. Alright, come on out. There we go. Right, so if I remember rightly, the ways of doing these is first we need to get it out of the plastic. Come on. Come on, you know you want to. You want to go on this Game Boy. Oh, it opens from the bottom. Silly. Yeah, so let's get this bit of adhesive off. There we go. Alright. Do this nice and carefully. There we go. And then just take off the main bit like so, which should then just nicely come all away with it all in one go. Like that. There we are. Give it one last blast for good luck, and then stick that lens straight in that little gap. There we go. Right, and you want to push down and make sure it's in there nice and firm and flush. There we go. And there you have it. After a bit of a re-screwing and a bit of cleaning and a bit of soldering the screen just to make the contact, we're all looking good. So now, in theory, if we turn this on, there we go. And like I said, if I turn the contrast all the ways up, you'll see that all the screen is all black, which is all good. And the game's working fine. All the buttons seem to be working. There we go, so I can see the screen. All the buttons seem to be working. It seems to be doing okay. Really, really nice shell. Black and white kind of theme with these greyish buttons. All brand new with a brand new battery cover. Brand new screws. And all good to go. Now, let's talk about money. So, like I explained in my intro video for this Grand Prix series, the Game Boys in total cost me around £500. It was like £501, but I'm just kind of rounding that down to 500. So that basically works out, if my maths is semi-decent, which I'm hoping they are, to about £20 each per Game Boy, which is pretty decent. Now, this obviously wasn't an expensive build, because like I say, there was no IPS involved, there was nothing that needed repairing as such. They didn't cost a lot of money. Obviously, I already had a soldering iron, I already had all the cleaning products, and the toothbrush and stuff, for example. So what this actually cost is, what I bought for it is the buttons, the screen lens, and the shell itself, which comes with, like, say, the power button and the little cover and the battery cover, all that kind of lovely stuff. Now, that all came to £10.22. So the shell itself, this white shell, £5.99. The buttons and the D-pad, and obviously I reused the rubbers and the start and select. The buttons came to £2.20, and the screen lens itself was about £2.03. So all in total, you're looking at about maybe, give or take, about £30.22. Now that's going to obviously be a pretty markup even for your standard found it in the attic grain. It's a bit kind of marked and scuffed and maybe not fully working Game Boy, so I'm reckoning this will go pretty well on my eBay store over the next few days. That pretty much wraps up the first Game Boy of this series. There's another 24 to go after this. As always, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you've got any questions at all or just fancy that, leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Have a good day all!